Tumechangamka. 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 Asanteni. Welcome everyone to this show. It's a series, it's the third of a series of 4 shows, and this one deals with the matters gender discrimination, and we're going to try and look at this issue from maybe a frame that many of you have not engaged from, and to help us do that, we have 4 panelists. We have 2 gentlemen and 2 ladies to try and get gender balance. And I'll ask them to introduce themselves. We'll start with the ladies. Kwa kiti pale, Cindy, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, my name is Cindy Mwendwa. I'm a HR practitioner and I am delighted to be here. I do not belong to, or I have passed through this youth bracket, so I'm beyond you, and I want to share with you my experiences and what I have seen, and hopefully guide you and show you and challenge you to do better.
Thank you, Cindy. Next, we have Mbuki.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mbuki Mburu. I'm a public policy and youth development advocate. I'm here because I've been in the youth leadership, but also very passionate about gender issues. And I'm looking forward to a very insightful session. Thank you.
Welcome, Mbuki. Next, we have Joe.
Morning, everyone. My name is Joe Kobuthi. I'm an editor and writer. I'm here to think, to share, and to learn with you.
Let's celebrate. And last but not least, we have Chris. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Chris Mukasa, and I'm the founder of Fatuma's Voice. I'm trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life, so I'm here to listen, to learn, to discover, and to share a little bit about what I've learned. So, yeah, thank you.
Briefly, Chris, what is Fatuma's Voice?
So Fatuma's Voice is a space where people come to talk about social issues. Fatuma is a 50-year-old woman who was born without the ability to speak. Now, the average person speaks around 20,000 words each and every day. If you can calculate, since Fatuma was born, how many words are trapped inside of her? 20,000 each day since she was born till today. I'll leave that for your mathematics. But now looking back, you and I are also like Fatuma, and also Fatuma represents Kenya, which gained independence 50 years ago. I'm using quotes because I don't really think we gained independence, and that's why we're actually having conversations about gender, about corruption, because if we were an independent nation, we would never have to have such a meeting. We should be here having fun, enjoying, learning from each other, not talking about equality. That's like taking us 100, 400 years back. And as much as colonization played a huge role in the fact that we are going through these problems right now, I feel like it even goes way back. It goes back to slavery. It goes back to thousands of years and things that have been supported by community till today. That's why we look at patriarchy, we look at unemployment, and you're like, is that a problem that has been caused by the president? Perhaps yes. But also, where does that stem from? And I think that's what I would love to learn here. Fatuma's Voice started in 2013, and we hold community forums where people talk about different social issues and try to find out the solutions to them from the ground up. Like, can we solve our issues without talking to the president, without saying nasaidia serikali, without asking for aid, without saying I need education, without saying I need a sponsor, without saying I need anything, without this forum? And I feel like I'm going to say something very controversial right now. You do not need anything. You don't need education. You don't need religion. You don't need anything to be a human being.
Lastly, just on that bit, we'll clap for him. Why can't Fatuma speak 50 years? Is it that she's dumb, or is it a social construct?
First of all, I want to apologize. When we started Fatuma's Voice, we had a tagline, and the tagline was "Speaking for the Voiceless." I am sorry for that, because no one is voiceless. Not a single human being. Whether you can speak or not, you're not voiceless. There's so many things you say every day, even if you say them in your brain, in your heart, to your partner in bed at night, like, even if you say them to your cellmate in prison, no one is voiceless. It's just that who is listening to that voice? And what are they doing after they listen? And then who is speaking on behalf of these people who are trying to say that word? And that's why politics is very, very important, because when, what's your name? You said something earlier on. Lorraine. When Lorraine was talking about how gender has affected her as a person, mtaani, and then you look at who represents her. You have an MCA, you have an MP, you have a governor, you have a president, you have a vice president who are supposed to represent you, Lorraine, not Kenyans, you in particular, but they're not speaking your voice. And so Fatuma's voice is taking away the power from the people in leadership and giving it back to Lorraine. She doesn't need anyone to speak for her. She doesn't need Fatuma's voice to speak for her. She just needs to open up her voice, and we need to listen to each and every person in this country. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Chris, because that's now, let's celebrate. That sets the tone, and now I'm going to go back to Cindy and then Buki. Tell us what you understand by gender discrimination as an academic term, but also from your personal experience as a woman in this country. Please, let's start with Cindy. Thank you.
Gender discrimination. I think we need to first define what is gender. So gender is both men and women, and not one, against the other, which, by the way, has been forced down our throats, that gender is about women, wale wanawake, wasichana. This is not true. So when the Constitution talks about, for example, the 2/3 gender rule, it is not talking about having 2/3 women in political leadership or within parliament. That's not what it's talking about. It is talking about either or, men or women, both. So what is gender discrimination? It is the unequal treatment of either gender. And I use the word either because it could be towards men too. It is more prominent towards women or the female as opposed to male. And I think this is important because, again, I want to stress that what has been shoved down our throats and into our minds is that gender discrimination, gender inequality, or gender, quality is about women. It is about all of us. You are not born anything else other than either a female or male. And that either one does not make you unequal or more equal than the other. And this is important, and it's very important for the youth because it is only upon you that there is going to come a change in the way we think.
How is it manifested in your life?
My personal experience is based on also the social experience. So I truly believe that for us to move forward, we need to look at the past so that we can be able to move forward, to take a look at where we are today, and then where do we go? So if we look in specific Africa, or Kenya for that matter, where are we coming from? We are coming from a colonial state, one where the colonialists came and inhabited our land. There was no Kenya. We lived within our communities, there were no borders as such. And we lived within our whether small or large tribes or even intertribes. And we had our own beliefs and we had our own systems, and they worked. Now let me tell you a fact. Before the colonialists came, do you know that there were no poor people, destitute Africans? Today, we have so many poor and destitute Africans, and we need to ask ourselves the question, why is that? We didn't have industries, etc., but something happened. They produced for themselves as communities. They traded with the communities who were neighbors. They crossed rivers, mountains, miles across, and they survived. But what did colonialism do? It did what, we used to talk about divide and rule. And the best way to do it is take one group against the other. And the first most important thing that they did is bring their ideals, which by the way were gender biased. Women in Europe at that point could not vote. They were seen as the lesser being. So they brought those beliefs with them and quickly put them, onto us and said, this is the way it's going to be. The man will speak, you stand back. At that point, actually, women were the farmers. We're the ones who went to farm. The men collected what was produced, they shared it with neighbors, correct? So then, what did the colonialists do? They said, well, okay, they're farmers, but it's not important. The land belongs to the man. He's the only one who can speak, the male. And those ideologies were then implanted into our forefathers, our African forefathers. Now, if I were to tell you that if I give you 1 million shillings, it's going to change your status, you most probably will take it and say, you don't have to pay me back. You most probably will take it and go. And that's exactly what happened. One part of the community was told, I am going to make you more powerful. You are going to be the leader. And they bought into it.
So the divide and rule was empower the man against the woman?
The divide and rule was against the man and the woman, and I want to say in the shadows, but more importantly, it was really against, also the tribes. How different are you from the person sitting next to you? You look like you come from Western Province, and you look like you come from the Eastern. You're tall and thin, you're brown and fat, and those divide. So the division comes in very many ways. And when we talk about gender discrimination, we must actually talk about the other discriminations. Without talking about those other discriminations, actually we are doing an injustice to gender discrimination.
So would you say that the colonialists introduced discriminations, all manner of discriminations, to ensure that you're fighting among each other?
I want to answer you with a resounding yes. With a resounding yes.
Because those are the same things you're fighting about today. The conflicts you're having in society.
But you see, what happened is that when the colonialists brought that and they implanted that into the minds of the society, what happened? When the colonialists left, they didn't really leave. In fact, they're here more than they were here 50, 100 years ago.
And we'll come back to that. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So Mbuki, you're a younger woman, yes. A youth for that matter. Or maybe you could respond to the same question. Yeah,
for me, gender discrimination, it's really being treated unequally because of your either male, female, transgender, or queer, And for me, when you talk about gender discrimination, 3 things comes into mind. What's my role, what's my right, and how is my relationship with the other person? And when you talk about how I have experienced gender discrimination in my life, is that, first of all, let me just pronounce, because for me, my experience comes all the way from the family. And how I'm treated at the family level, it sort of shows up, even how I'm going to be treated or how I'm going to relate with people. And just saying that, coming from where I come from Kikuyu land, is to say that there's a lot of relations on how things has transformed. And of course, colonialism influenced on how gender discrimination is today. For example, where I come from, there's a lot of farming that goes around. And looking into the culture, for the Kikuyu culture particularly, it was very organized because at the time, for example, men would take care of livestock, and then female would take care of land and and the products that would come out of it. And there was a bit of equality in terms of you produce your products and then you produce milk or whatever. But there was so much equality in a way that you appreciate that everyone has a contribution to the family. But then there comes in, just going back to what my fellow panelists said, is that colonialism then came. and realized these people are sort of living in a very comfortable way. How do I come in place and sort of diffuse, divide and rule? And they looked at the female. They look like female are a bit conservative, and if you want to destroy a family, actually, it's easy for you to go through a man than a female. It's the reality. So they went through, they were like, women are a bit more conservative. They might not be willing to, change their ways of life. And they thought about, okay, let's go through the man and introduce commodity production, commercialization of agriculture, for example, in a way that they introduce seeds, they introduce all this plowing and everything, and then they introduce money economy. So when money comes into place, then you find that already now women are now being taken away, land is being taken away from the women. And now there's a whole discussion around commercializing cash production, the cash crop production, and all that. And that's why you find that in where I come from, there's a lot of cash crops also being grown. And it's really for us to be able to understand, you must understand where you came from and how gender discrimination has continuously grown even today. And just to say that, in that way then, they were able to also look at, for example, the land. The lands were also taken away, and we have now reserves, land reserves. And it's to say that even in the new colonialism, and that's why you'll see a lot of land injustices in Kenya, because most of the land was taken away from the people, and you were taken to one group. And it's really to say that even in the new systems, in the new governments, there's no intention to be able to take back the land. And even manifesting again that into the work life as a young person is to say that when there's a money economy came into place, then now as a young person, there's this whole thing of education. Of course, there's history that girl child was also not prioritized in education. And even as a person, a young person who has gone through education system, I'm working in different spaces, you still find that there's that discrimination in the sense that you're a young woman, I'm reporting to you how, There's still that manifestation that was infused into our way of life
that a woman is a lesser being.
That is still manifesting in our lives, yeah.
How has gender discrimination, affected me? I want to say I'm extremely, extremely lucky. My father was a very forward-looking man, and he used to introduce, and we were 12 in our family, okay? And he used to introduce us as, I have boys and men in my house. And everybody used to laugh when he used to say that. And then he would introduce, us girls and the boys, and that was it. And he says, you can do anything you want to do. My mother, on the other hand, she was really constrained to, you have to behave in a particular way because you are female. And, the boys have to behave in a particular way because they are male and they're the leaders of the, of the crowd, and you must take those leadership positions. And my father, on the other hand, he says, don't listen to your mother. She's the head of the house, he always said, but don't listen to your mother. And we stood up. At 27, I had more than 300 staff. More than 80% of them were men reporting to me. When you hear people like Martha Karua being called Iron Lady, this is a term that should be disregarded completely. She is just a woman with a voice and who has the ability to, not ability actually, she has the brains to stand up and say, it is okay for me to speak as a woman. I am not brash, I'm not, what is the word they use, to women who speak out? Haughty. Yes, haughty and, sorry? Aggressive and yule ako frustrated unanaana mwanaume. I mean, exactly, Take away those things from your minds. And really, I really challenge the male youth to stand up. Ask yourself, if you have your mothers and your sisters and your aunties and, and even, your friends, girlfriends, that if I wasn't there today, ask yourself, would this woman, would this sister, would this wife, would this girlfriend be able to carry on? That if we treated one another in an equal manner, there actually would be no need to ask that question, but you must ask yourself that question.
Thank you, Cindy. Joe, how has colonialism, both of them have mentioned colonialism, how has colonialism, both the original colonialism and neo-colonialism, gotten us where we are in terms of gender discrimination?
I think that's a very, just to piggyback on what panelists have said, I think it's very important to reframe this conversation within our social history, so that we're able to understand exactly what happened, what is happening. That I don't like the word colonialism because it evades what it really was. It was plunder, theft, and killing of people. You know, we use this word very carefully. But actually,
and was it planned?
It was planned. It was planned plunder, theft, and and extraction of things. I mean, a bunch of people white men met in 1894.
White men?
Yeah, in Berlin. And they decided, okay, we're going to come to this place called Africa and we're going to divide it up for ourselves. But what is interesting about this conversation about extraction is that, and I usually think about it, is that before 1915, the history of, it wasn't Kenya then, because Kenya became a colony in 1920, but we see men and women in leadership roles. You know, we see Meketli Wamenza fighting for the Giriama. In the Congo, we see the Queen of the Congo, you know, fighting off imperialists. But something in Kenya in particular, after 1915, it's almost as if women disappear, and you wonder what happens. And something happened in 1915 that we don't even know the history. But 1915, the British, by then, that already now, by and large, fought all the people who had resisted, the Nandi, the Giriama, the Gikuyu, etc. They already fought them. Now they were handling things. But we have what we call the Native Ordnance Act of 1915. And this act does introduces three things that we need to really think about very, very keenly. One, something called, I'm sure you know, the Kipande law. And the Kipande law was for all men above the age of 16, you'd walk around with a box, with a tag, with a box. And we say this, but the key thing about this box was what was the box for? It was your name, your district, where, you know, your district, so the enclave where you're coming from. But in particular, what was interesting was that the name of your white employer, you know, the name of your white employer. And so that means is that what happens then is that one, the public sphere, the colonial public sphere, first and foremost becomes racialized. So as a black man, I mean, because it was black men, isn't it? Moving through this now colonial enterprise, you needed to appropriate it to a white man to have value. So your value is based on labor, but then two is of value because of the white man that says, this is my, you know, to euphemize Malcolm X, this is my house nigger, you know, or kind of thing. So that's where you come from as a black man, and so you have Kipande tax. But then similarly, they realize now. So
I have to pay to have that Kipande?
No, you have to pay to have that. No, the Kipande tax is you pay, but then, but they realize men were not getting the Kipande. So they introduced something called the poll tax. So the poll tax were all men above the age of 16, regardless of where you're coming from, you pay 12 shillings per year. This is now forcing you to enter into the money economy. So 12 shillings per year. So therefore, you go look for work. You're working for a white man, and you have a tag. It says your name, district, and the white man where you work for. So the public sphere in this case becomes racialized. But then they realize that it's not effective. It's not effective that men were evading, etc. You're evading, you're running away with resistance. So they introduce something else called, in the Native Ordnance Act, called heart tax. But heart tax is what they whitewashed our history. It was actually called breast tax. I don't know, in Kikuyu it breast tax.
Matiti.
Yeah, breast tax. In Kikuyu it has a way, it has a more heavier intonation. No, if you say
What does it say in Kikuyu?
Kiamaka kiondo, meaning it's a bit, you know, like.
Igotilia nyodo.
There you go.
Igotilia tax for matiti.
For matiti, exactly. So what it does is that they realize, how do we now make these men, the women in their spaces? So what happens is that now, as a man, if you're married or if you're a father, you'd pay 16 shillings for every woman within your household. So your wives, if you're polygamous, or your children. So what then happens is that now the public sphere in this case, now what happens is that now for women, is that they're introduced to the colonial economy as sexual beings.
They are commodified.
They are commodified as sexual beings. So the black man is introduced to the colonial economy as a labor, as an output of labor. So your value, and today, interestingly, we still say that, mwanaume ni effort. Mwanaume, I mean is that your value as a man, a black man within the colonial economy is tied to your output as a man, but more importantly, to your proximity to a white man. Hence, you see our political class, when there's a problem, someone goes to France, like current guys on France hugging, France president, and so you want to appropriate a white man to get value for your labor, for your extraction. And for the women, is that now you become sexualized. And what we now see in that history is that now black men's labor is undervalued, women are made invisible. So
you're saying the value of a man is, you're judged by your ability to pay those taxes.
Respondly.
Psychologically, sasa ushakuwa reframed. Kama wezi,
you're not a man.
It's like the same thing we are doing today. If I drive a certain kind of car, that means I can afford it, then I'm more of a man.
Precisely.
Or if I live in a certain neighborhood. Are you seeing those connections? Maybe you don't ask yourselves, where did this come from? Why are we competing? What is the rat race? But you can see it was implanted in us. And some of these things we wonder, even the current gender wars that we're having, toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, it's all part of a plan.
And for the women, they were sexualized.
They were sexualized.
And then what happens is that now, because now they move it, this becomes now the colonial public sphere. So but what happens is now towards the 1920s and 30s, the church comes in to now cement this as well. Particularly the missionary churches come and cement now this logic. I mean, to its credit or to its discredit, it was not able to infiltrate all our spaces, but particularly within now the new African bourgeoisie class. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I was in high school, my counterpart women didn't study home science, but they studied home science, we studied woodwork. So this was part of now the colonial enterprise to now to try to now decide, women, since you're sexual beings, these are the terrain in which you can respond and act. And as men is how you can respond within certain parameters. I mean, and then it became so entrenched such that it's so funny that our lead, the INCAO, Kenya African Union, by the time we get into 1949, there was a whole thing that took place because now Kenya Land Freedom Army, Mau Mau, started now oathing people. It was actually, in fact, it was Mbotela Senior and Jomo Kenyatta said, first president of Kenya said, no, we shouldn't. They didn't want women to be part of that thing. So it had become so thing that even now the African leaders were like, no. By then, women, you guys, no. Women shouldn't involve themselves within the public sphere. And we see that are perpetuating today. There's still a contest between, the genders, where meaning that, the value of the woman is still sexualized within the public sphere, that you only enter into this space within this logic and a spectrum of it. And as a man, your value is only also towards labor. So you've seen this contestation, but we're not going to the underlying logics that we're still living this colonial, it's a colonial enterprise that we're still living under.
That's heavy. That's heavy. Let's clap for Joe for helping us contextualize that. And lastly, before we go to the audience, Chris, how does this manifest within our communities, economically and other ways? You know, this gender, what does it mean, you know, to discriminate against women?
Each time I talk about this issue, I feel like we are not doing enough in terms of whether it's the leaders or as youth or as a nation, because the people we are fighting against are not sleeping. These guys are seated in boardrooms like this, not teaching each other about history, because they already know it well better than any of us. They know each and everything he has said. There's nothing new they do not know there. We don't know it. We have our degrees and our education, but none of us knows what he has just talked about. Which is why I said you don't need education, especially the Kenyan education system. It's crap. It doesn't tell you who you are. It doesn't teach you confidence. It doesn't teach you how to, relate with peers. It doesn't teach you about self-worth, which I feel is more important. And education aside, let's bring in the church. You mentioned the church, Joe, right? And religion playing a huge role in where we are at right now as Africans. Does religion really prioritize self-worth? I don't know. If you find a church like that, I'll want to go back to church. If you find a school that will teach me what he said, actually, what Joe, and I want to say this directly to you, what you've talked about in the last 5 minutes is more than what some of us learned in our entire history and geography and education system.
Yeah, just a second. Who has ever heard what Joe has said before? Just lift up your hand.
Oh yeah, nice, survey. Let me count. 1, 2, just keep your hands, put them really high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. How many are we in this room?
We have 30, 40. So, yeah, hold on. How many had it in school?
Ooh.
How many learned it in school? What did you learn it from?
No, I mean, I read it. Self.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mutemi. Actually, Phil, the survey everyone filled out earlier should have included such questions. Don't ask me. The survey asked about my gender. It asked about, what else did they ask? Religion, age, which is fine, because we also need to understand who are the people who are interested in this conversation. We need that. But you know what that reminds me? It reminds me of the Kipande system. Why do you want to know my gender? Why do you want to know my race? Why do you want to know my age? Thank you. Thank you. I just want something simple. Just give me human rights. That's all I am asking for. If we had human rights today, this would be a very, very useless event. Like, honestly, what are we even talking about? You know, if each one of us, and I feel like if I was to do a poll or a survey about all Kenyans and ask them who can raise their hand if they feel like they have their entire human rights taken care of by the government, because they are apparently the ones who are custodians of human rights. And Mutemi is a very good example. He has gotten enough beatings from the police. And it's funny because who here has been beaten? Nani amechapwa hapa na polisi vizuri? Hakuna. I tell you why. Because you're not doing what he's doing. You're not putting up a poster saying that what the president is doing is illegal. No one is going to beat you up. You're going to sleep peacefully. I'm actually giving you the recipe of living a peaceful life in Africa. Don't touch politics. Don't touch religion. Don't touch the systems. Don't touch the rich people.
Don't question anything.
Thank you. Don't even question. Don't speak. Be voiceless. And that's where Fatuma's voice comes in. And people usually ask me one question. And there's something, Cindy, you said this, and I probably maybe want to clarify. You talked about things being shoved down our throats. That's a very powerful thing. Now, I want to create a mental picture for that, because the way our education system is set up, that's English. Use the English. Things are being shoved down our throats. It looks like a cool quote to say, but I want you to picture it. Someone passed me a bottle of water. Let me use mine because of, COVID and stuff. So take this. Please shove it down my throat.
No, you're not doing enough. You're giving him water. You need to take the entire bottle and shove it down his throat.
What she just did is what the government is doing to you and me and Mutemi and Fatuma and Wanjiko and Onyango and Nuru and Bahati and everyone across this freaking continent. She didn't do it because she's a human being. The people out there are not human. I will not have to ask her to request, please shove this down my throat. No, they do it even before I ask. Aren't they lovely? Like, aren't politicians lovely? We don't even have to ask. They come to us.
I saw a headline, sorry to interrupt, whereby Uhuru is signing the new increase in exercise tax from 15 to 20%. And then he says, I'm doing it for your own benefit.
First of all, I want to tell you something. Like, as the founder of Fatuma's Voice, I've had the privilege to get access to information and spaces that the average human being, or if I wouldn't have had access to if I wasn't in that position. Now, what if I told you that, let's say today, how many of you know about Area 51? Please tell me what you know. Please pass her a microphone. I want to hear anything, just, it doesn't have to be factual, just what you've heard or read or seen online. Someone pass her a microphone.
So I'm just going to peddle the rumor. Area 51 is a place where the American government has sort of, fenced and no one can access because it has aliens. I think it has aliens, something like that, I don't know. But it's a huge government secret conspiracy thing going on that the rest of us don't know about, but we know there's an Area 51.
I like one of the words she said there, the rest of. Yes. Honestly speaking, right now, when you go back home and you look at your neighbor or your brother or your sister, just know that you are also known as the rest of. That's your new name. Please take it, because that's how they refer to you. They say this area is not supposed to be seen by the rest of them. And I'll tell you what, you're part of, you like extras in a movie. And I'm sorry to say this, but each and every one of you is an extra in a movie, and the script has been written. You're just acting it out. When I tell you you don't need education or religion or the system or anything, I feel like a child who was born naked and thrown in the forest and was raised by monkeys will be a better president than anyone else I know in this country right now as we speak. I don't care who you are, what qualification you have.
Chris, let's zero down. Yes. You've worked with communities in the marginalized areas. How does women discrimination manifest in those areas?
I paused before answering that question because it's about historical injustices that have been piled up over and over, and it's very hard to say. Okay, I'll give you an example. In the workplace, she has worked in HR, so we talk about gender discrimination in terms of sexuality. Someone will catcall you, someone will either give you a job based on your looks or how you look, if you're attractive or if you're not, or if you're a woman or not, or if you're pregnant or not, or if you're, like, there are so many things. Imagine you're holding an interview and 5 people walk in. There's a man, there's a woman, and then there's a woman who's pregnant, and then there's a woman who's carrying a kid breastfeeding. And there's another girl who's probably 18 years old. Who are you going to give the job? They're all qualified. Same credentials. Who are you going to give the job? That's gender discrimination right there. I don't want to know the answer, but you already have it in your mind because you thought of something. You already know who you're going to give that job. You know it. So don't ask me what gender discrimination is. You do it every day.
I have this mental picture. And this is something recent. This is something I've noticed recently. I'm seeing that 18-year-old girl dressed in a halter, body hugging, up to here. Normally what she would wear going out in the evening, but this is 8 a.m. in the morning. and carrying a brown envelope. So I'm assuming she's going to apply for a job. I don't know whether that picture comes to mind. Is that what you're talking about?
It doesn't really matter what picture is in your mind. Give that person the job because of merit. I don't care if you have a child on your breast. I don't care if you have a 2-year-old at home. Give that person a job because they deserve and they're qualified for that job. Don't give it to them because they're a man or because they're a woman. Actually, don't subscribe to, give women jobs because they are women. That's actually more degrading. It's like, I want you to get that job because you're qualified and you can do it really, really well. And I think that's the place we probably need to go to. However, as we speak right now, women are getting the raw side of the bargain. And I'll take you a little bit back to what Joe was talking about in terms of colonization, or even a little bit back to why and how colonization happened. It came out of slavery. And probably slavery happened and we had to take a whole bunch of people to the US to take care of their land. Now, there's a question, yeah.
Chris, would you say we're in a slave economy?
We've always, first of all, slavery never ended, colonization never ended, and please stop calling it neo-colonization, because it never, can you show me the day 1963? Patuma is still voiceless.
Hold it there. Let's take a break, and then you're going to come back after 10 minutes, go refresh, come back. Let's now take this conversation to you. I'm sure you guys have, I hope you have a lot of questions and comments, and then you can open up the show. We'll pick it up from where you've left it, that we are still what? We are still? Lakini tuchangam, because you are looking for solutions. Asanteni, let's clap for everybody. Welcome back to the Changamka Show. This is the second part, and you're going to pick up where we left with Chris talking about us still being a slave economy. I thought slavery ended in the 1800s, Chris.
I feel like it's been reinvented and rebranded. It now has a website. People can download it on the App Store. It's
on Instagram.
Yeah, it's on it. It has so many followers. It's evolving as we go. So what we were taught by our broken education system about what slavery really is has evolved. So when we look around, we don't see what we were taught. And we say, oh, slavery ended. It's true, that version ended. Then they brought in version 1.0, 2.0. Right now we are probably on, I don't even want to say it because it's very disheartening. However, I want to talk about the economy and how gender affects the economy, because there's a very big misconception that gender is just about sex and women and men and who's pregnant and who's not. Although that's still a very big part, there's an aspect that is usually left out so many times, and it's the aspect of the economy and how gender sort of controls and even runs the economy. What that means is the Vice President of Kenya was quoted saying that, again, the third gender role, he said, and this is like live on video, you can get it, he said that, I hope that we can achieve, gender parity in my lifetime. Do you know what that means? What if you live forever? You guys, these guys can live forever. Like they have all the money, they're shoving down things down our throats, so they can live forever. For me, I feel like that conversation was meant for yesterday. And even having it today, it's too late. It's already too late for that. Now, 78% of the labor done by women is unpaid.
Wow.
Do you know what's the meaning of 78%, you guys? Nani MUYI pata 78% in any exam? That's a really high, that's like a bright student. That's the level of...
How does that manifest? What do you mean by unpaid? Which labor, which work?
First of all, everyone works. No one should tell you that hana job. Everyone has a job every single day and everyone works. You're just not paid for it. Like even sitting here right now, this is a job. Waking up, like everything that you do each and every day is a task that you spend a lot of energy and mental, to do it. Going back to the household and how it's set up, who takes care of kids most of the time? Women. Who breastfeeds? It's women. Who's supposed to? There's so many things. Who's supposed to cook in the family? When you ask most people across the board, they'll say it's women. And when a man steps in and says, you know what, I want to cook for you, they're like, oh my gosh, my man is the best. He's treating me like a queen. No, that's not how queens are treated. We need to redefine what that means. So when I talk about unpaid labor, I'm talking about each and everything that goes on that is not really either appreciated or recognized in terms of monetary value.
It's taken for granted.
Exactly. And to make it worse, and also to even bring another juxtaposition to this whole conversation, is that gender does not affect women alone. I'll give you an example. If today my wife, okay, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids, but if I got married and my wife had a child.
He's an eligible bachelor. Huh?
By the way, yes, yeah, I thank you for that. I really.
But is that also a colonial construct?
Yeah. So what I'm looking at is the woman will be given how many? I don't even know how many leave days are given to women who have children who are pregnant. 90. 3 months. Wow, that's a little. Anyway, how much is given to? Is that a little or is that enough? It's very little.
I think that the best in Africa right now is Gambia, which has 6 months.
6 months, and that's the best. That's still very little, right? How much paternity leave is given to men? 7 days. She's in HR, so I'll take her word for it. 7 days. So 2 weeks. Can you compare 2 weeks to 6 months? So I'm bringing in this conversation so that you see it's not about women or men, it's about human rights. As a man, I need to spend time with my child. I need to spend time even before the child is born as much as the woman is given. And this is actually me trying to say that men are being discriminated in the workplace because of that particular difference in time. I also want 6 months paternity leave to spend time with my wife and my child. And I just brought that in so that you understand that every time you hear gender, it's not just about, and I think Cindy brought it very clearly, like gender is not about sex, it's about human rights.
Which countries do they have equal paid leave equal leave, maternity leave, paternity and maternity leave?
I don't think we have any.
Finland?
Even in the US, I don't think.
None. Although they do give, Scandinavia does give men a little more.
I have something for you, Mutemi. Let's not ever compare such a question. Whenever we are talking about paternity leave or maternity leave, let's not ever think which other countries are getting this, so that we compare and see, oh, we're not alone, tunateseka, sisi wote, kwa hivyo tuko sawa. Yes. Yes. You deserve
That's a very powerful point here.
It's your human rights, regardless. Like, I don't care if the white people do it. Their system that we imported that was pushed down our throats is not working. It hasn't worked for them for more than 400 years. And I'm saying that because...
It's capitalism, isn't it?
Yeah, you can give it that name, but it comes, and that's why I don't like even putting a name on it, because there are so many different brands. So when I call it capitalism today, then someone comes and rebrands it and calls it, let's say, socialism. Rebranded like with pimped
neoliberalism.
Exactly, all those jargon. Me just want something simple. Human rights, done. Don't even give it a name. It already has a name, and it's human rights. So when you go back to the economy, the gender economy and how that's affected, if all this work is unpaid, I hear many men talking about, and especially since you mentioned that, you know, I'm single and everything, I see most of the conversations online are about when you want to meet up with a woman, who pays for the bill? Why? What?
It depends.
Mostly. Now, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. I feel like it's okay for the man to pay, and he should pay for probably everything. And this is why I'm saying that, because of course you can balance it based on where you're at, but if you look at the system and how it's treated, women, they are not in a position to compete equally with you already. So that's where we should start from. Although this is a very individual conversation, so her scenario is not the same as someone else's scenario. Perhaps if we are dating, she can take care of all the bills, and I'll be cool with it. I'll be like, damn, I'm being treated as a king. But if she can't, I should be in a position to do that. However, it shouldn't be a case of she's not able to. That's why she's not paying. That's where I'm coming in. It's not about whose responsibility. I don't care about that. If let's say we decide it's the woman who's taking care of school fees, that should be fine because she can. Not because whose role and responsibility is it. But she can't do that because, number one, when you look at how people are being paid in jobs, women are paid much more less than men for the same job. So for example, if you got a photographer, and these are actually real statistics, male photographers are paid more than female photographers. Male politicians are paid more than female politicians. And this payment sometimes is not even official. You'll find that people it's called kingpins. And I'm bringing in politics because it's sort of so much connected.
There's money coming from somewhere else, not official salaries.
Yes, so and that money, it goes to more men than it goes to women. So when this woman tells a guy, to my fair, the guy is like, equality. He's like, it needs to be, but if you look at things on the ground, this woman has actually been pressed down, shaken up, and like that's the point she's at. So when you talk about the money that is being lost, now let's bring that money conversation. If 78% of labor is not paid for, think about your entire life, all the money you've earned, take away 75%, give it to, I don't know where that money goes, by the way, we need to find out. So that's the biggest question we have right now. Just before you...
So 75% of the income that's supposed to be within the society, haiko?
Yes. And why that is a problem
is it's women who bring up kids mostly, as you said, or
yes.
take care of our families.
That's not necessarily true, because I know men who take care of families. However,
Majority,
yes. And so if that is unpaid, it means if you're not paid for a job, you won't do it well. So we talk about later on, we have rapists in the society, and we keep asking, who raised you? But who has asked that question? Who has seen that question somewhere? Who raised you? But the people who are raising our children are not being given the space and the finance and the freedom and to really be the best parents they can ever be. As a woman, and I'm just going to finish this up, as a woman, I'm thinking, if let's say we both decide to vie for a political seat, I can campaign at night, I can go to clubs, I can go anywhere I want and do the same campaign. She can't. She'll be catcalled, she'll be raped, and let me stop using her. Let me use a real example. There's a lady called Bina Maseno. Bina Maseno vied for MCA in Kayole, and she was 22 years old. Please check her out right now, Bina Maseno. She's an amazing lady who's doing a lot for the people in the community, and she vied for a political seat against a bunch of men, but she never got the position, but I think she was number 3 out of 12 men. We need to really talk to her to find those statistics, which is also another problem. We do not have data on gender. So right now,
Actually, part of the challenge I've had getting a panel for this show, and I particularly wanted that economy, the statistics of gender discrimination, not just the usual conversation that people are having, but what is the actual cost, monetary cost of gender discrimination. So finding those statistics has been a huge, huge problem.
But how will we find those statistics if the women are not involved in this whole, like we want, if it's a man doing the survey, come on. Like, yeah, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, Joe, he's talking about labor. We know what is the world economy built on, the current last 400 years.
I mean, he's rightly said it. I mean, it's a story, you know, and all these things, human beings live through stories. And Europe as an invention was also a story, right? So, but I think we need to, I mean, as rightly says, if you go back, the key date that we need to always focus on, for me, is not 1884 when Berlin Conference happened, but 1492. And something happened.
1492. That's when Vasco da Gama came.
He came for 1498. Yeah. When 1492 something happened was that there was a treaty called Treaty of Tacidoles, where the Pope Alexander VI, and the Pope divided the world into two, right? Between Spain and Portugal, which were actually the first imperialists. And this division of the world into two, what happened is that it created what coloniality scholars call colonial matrix of power. So what happened was that there began a hierarchization of the world between certain people and other people. Of course, the white male Christian being at the top of that hierarchy, and you know, depending on where you are, somewhere in between, you followed in between there. But what happened is that, and three historical events happened thereafter. One we're seeing is in Spain, the King and Queen Isabella, they evict the Jews, Moors out of Spain, and then becomes the nation state becomes homogeneous. But then in Americas, Columbus discovers America, which is actually the first colony. The first colonial state is actually America. And then tied to that is that all of a sudden, also again in Africa, is that now we start taking black people
to go and do what in America?
To go and be labor. So we black people move into that space as labor. Initially, it was 80% of all slaves were men, who came out from particularly West Africa, but also East Africa from the 18th century, and of course the Congo, particularly what we now call modern day Angola. Those were the real slave hubs. 80% of them. And then of course, because of industrialization, slavery became tedious. Also they got machines.
Yeah. So Joe, what was the commodity that these slaves were going to produce in America?
I mean, largely agricultural stuff. So cotton, sugarcane, rice fields. These are commodities that were being used for factories in Europe. So it began. This civilization began as one extracting people to do stuff for it. So it is a civilization. So and rightly said, capitalism is just part of that civilization, but it is a civilization, and that the African continent were the labor, both in terms of raw material and human beings, for that civilization.
And how does it manifest today?
So you're right. So you rightly said it.
And I want you to connect. Then Cindy picks it up because of as a HR practitioner, this slave labor, and then we open up. You're right. So slavery becomes expensive, one, but then two, also because industrialization happens. So machines do better jobs than human beings. So slavery becomes cumbersome. People have revolutions in Haiti in 1804. Guys are killing people. It just becomes a cumbersome trade. So what happened, because it really was a trade, right? So what happened then, that they're machines, but they still need commodities. So now within this civilization, this Anglo-European civilization, what moves from slavery of moving people out is what now they come and now say, let's go there and now have colonies and extract labor and raw materials from there. Hence now we see now the imperial colonial experience, isn't, from 1885 all the way to 1960s. And then 1960s is that now again, Africans being resilient and being stubborn. What we call foreign investors.
Precisely. So now that transition. So as I began, there are narratives within this thing. So the first narrative was, let's go and make them Christians. That is what was happening in 1492 with Portugal and Spain. let's go and make them Christians. And then after that, move then to, let's now go and civilize them. Let's go and civilize the barbarians. And then from there, become from civilizing mission, become let's now go and make them, in French, it's a better word in French, they're similado. Let's go and make them human beings, So we move from then. And then now, today it becomes, let's go and, we need them to have foreign investors and development experts. But it's the same narrative of imperialism. And this is just, this is a civilization that came. The
We haven't been civilized for 400 years.
No, it's a civilization that came to the rest of the world. And today what's happening is that this civilization is crumbling. And I think...
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. So let me open it up to... It's heavy, isn't it? Tumechangamka, wengine hata wamelala. Tumechangamka. Remember, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. And that's why we're having this conversation, because we have all these stories of, corruption, tribalism, divide and rule, women discrimination, and of course youth unemployment. You guys are young people who are looking for opportunities. And the question is, why are there no opportunities? Maybe they're not meant to be any opportunities. Have you ever thought about that? That the more unemployed people they are, what do you learn in commerce? The more there are unemployed people, the more the labor, then the cheaper it is, because there are too many people fighting for the same jobs. So, questions, comments from the participants. Okay, Delia. My
name is Gloria Machete, and I think I'm a little bit uneasy with the romanticization of how we used to exist prior to the plunder and the extraction. Are we saying that there were no toxic patterns going on in our communities, or did it just evolve? A man may not have been defined by his labor, but there was the aspect of being strong and manly and not a wimp. So perhaps we could put that into perspective. Were we perfect before they came?
Thank you for that question. Let's take the questions and comments, and then so you'll take that one. Yeah?
Okay, hello.
Okay, go.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Wanjiro, and I feel like when you were asking, especially Chris, the question of how gender inequality manifests itself in low-income areas, I don't think he gave us a straight answer, because I've been doing work around looking at how the pandemic affected men and how the pandemic affected women, and especially in the low-income areas. When the president gave his speech about how we were going to handle the pandemic, the thing that he deliberately left out was the protocols of how women in emergency situations were going to be taken care of. And so you find that a lot of women lost their lives because they were not able to afford an ambulance, for example, when they are going to give birth, for example. You find that, and especially women in low-income areas, because number one, you can't even afford an ambulance on a normal day, with or without a pandemonium. You can't afford an ambulance. And then now there's a pandemic, and there's a curfew, and there's the police brutality. So women were not able to have access to healthcare. There were no strict and clear protocols on how women were going to do that. We're also talking about in emergency situations like where you need to have your child go to hospital in between the curfew hours. We're also talking about loss of income for women living, especially if you're a house cleaner, you're a house manager. A lot of women lost their jobs. And that also, I would like that to be included when we're having a conversation about gender equality and gender inequality, and when we're talking about representation in government, what I like to call is historical inclusion. Because if there are no many women who are making decisions at government levels, then it will trickle down to how we experience maybe the managing of a pandemic, how we experience HR policies, how we experience other things that have that don't necessarily have anything to do with the politics, but it all trickles down. And I would like for us to focus more on that, and to focus more on even the inequality of the social classes. We have rich women, we have poor women, we have young children, we have teenagers being raped, we have the problem of teenage pregnancy, and so many other things that we need to highlight. But yeah.
Okay, so my name is Venton Shakil, and I have two questions. First, I'd want us to understand how patriarchy affects men in the society today, because this is a conversation that we've had, a lot of people fight about it on social media, especially Twitter, and we don't seem to actually understand how it manifests today on men, the negative effects it has on men. Because if I tend to believe that the real liberation of men will be the empowerment of women, as Esra Vilraz tries to put it in her book, The Manipulated Man. I want us to try and understand this, and not just in this space, and even beyond to other spaces. The second question is will there be a time when the society today will do away with affirmative action that seeks to empower women? Is there a time when we'll say we have reached gender equality? Is there a time? Because as you can see today, there are so many spaces, there are so many opportunities that have been opened up to women so that we can mainstream gender. But is there a time where society or a government will say, now I think women are now at a position to compete equally, to strive for competitive positions without special positions created for them? Yes, only those.
We'll take any of those questions.
My name is Vicky Rajoro. I want to pose my question, a challenge to the panelists. Okay, I believe I've seen that all of you have identified the gaps. What have you done in your various areas? And what is the action you're planning to take for the future? And I'm also want to request, not to request, but to put more power on the boy child. No matter how much we fight for the women, our boy child are also part of this discussion. Please don't forget the male gender. We need solution from there also.
Thank you, Vicky.
Hi, I'm Ivonne. I have a question. I'm asking, why can't men and women be represented equally? That's why I'm here today. I want to know.
Why can't we have gender 50-50?
Yes.
Oh, hi, I'm Dorothy. So my first question goes to Chris, if I'm not wrong. So what is your ideal education system? And by answering that, what can we do about it, and when can we start? That's one. Then two, in as much as we are talking about all the negatives that come with gender equality, there has been progress. I'm acknowledging this because I've read some cases that acknowledge that contribution, whether you're a housewife, contribution can be part of something to consider when dividing matrimonial property. That is two-way, in as much as the man is working, or maybe you are the housewife, the way many women are in our African setup. Your contribution, your cooking, your cleaning of the house, you're taking care of the children, that is part of your contribution in that marriage. So my question is, are we acknowledging the progress? Because all of us are leaning on the other side, the negative side. And my last, I think it's a contribution, this last one. We are saying we are empowering women, we have NGOs, we have everything. We were just discussing this here. You are empowering me as a woman. After I'm empowered, is that man ready to just welcome me being empowered? Is he ready to receive me as an empowered woman? That's all. Thank you.
My name is Sylvia. I'm glad she asked my question. And I would also like to contribute on the part of religion. I'll talk about my religion. I'm Catholic. So there's that process of maybe catechism once you're young. So I used to ask this question every single lesson I attended. Why is it that all the teachers are male? And why is it that the father is male? Can't a woman maybe, yes.
Be a mother.
Yeah,
Why do we have fathers and no mothers?
yeah. Can't a woman haizi ongoza misa? Why is it a problem that a woman cannot ongoze misa? The work of maybe girls and women is nyinyi mwekwe liturgical dancers. You serve the priest as he goes to guide the mass, and the nuns to help the priests. Even the male can also help a female priest to do those things. And also, I think maybe one solution as the youth, we always contribute to gender inequality. So personally what I do, I have a young daughter. So she comes from school, tells me, oh, Mom, why is it that cars belong to boys and dolls belong to girls? So I'll buy both, a car and a doll. You deserve a car and a doll. It's not that a doll, it's meant for female and cars meant for male. So it's also what we do on daily basis that maybe we can come and achieve the gender equality thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Let's clap for her. I am also a proud father of daughters, and my daughters get all the toys. There's no gendering of toys in my space.
Hello guys. Hi. I'm Nelly. We all talk about pandemic, culture, pandemic, religion, but we forget our cultural norms. Like us, like Luos, we are supposed to, as women, we are not supposed to take gizzard. Gizzard is all for men. We also, tunasahau, we practice those things, but you don't mention here. We must mention them, okay? Tusisahau ati tumetoka nyumbani na tuna practice gender inequality in our family. So we must mention them.
You like gizzards?
Yes, I like.
But you're not allowed to take them.
I'm not. Napika sa lunch.
Why not?
But do you take them?
I take them. Only at lunchtime.
So you break the rules. Congratulations. Please clap for her for that.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for the
contribution. I want
contribution.
to say something on that before we continue.
And as you're saying that, please answer the question, the other question that you had.
Okay.
Yeah.
So rules are meant to be broken. They were not created for you. Most of the rules that you see in society, especially the law, is not there for you. It's there to protect the government and the system. So before you follow any law, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it beneficial to myself and the rest of the society? If it's no, do not follow it. And there are systems to appeal for that. That's why we need to study, we need to learn, so that when a policeman tells you to do something, you're like, no, this is what is supposed to be. Now, back to, and I know that
what Wanjiro had commented about the economy?
I think that's a story that Mutebi can help you a lot when it comes to police harassment and everything. However, you said Wanjiro? Okay. So, first of all, I want to say that regardless of that question, at the base of everything is human rights. If you had human rights, if your human rights were taken care of during the pandemic, you wouldn't have to worry about being pregnant and not being able to deliver your child safely. And if you have a husband, or if you're married or you have a partner in your home, where are they? And is this your responsibility or is it a shared responsibility? Definitely women got the raw deal when it comes to gender. And there's a question she just said right now. She was talking about, we need to talk about the boy child, right? She said that. So the question is, who really needs the attention right now? Is it the boy child or is it the girl child? Is it the poor or is it the rich? Is it the educated or is it the uneducated? Is it the people in the slums or is it the people in the affluent areas? So it's not really a question about gender per se. Actually, gender cuts across all human rights. Gender affects education, affects income, affects how we're going to treat our trees, affects the fact that Uhuru Park is being torn down as we speak right now. They are tearing down that entire place, slowly by slowly, inch by inch, like they've always done. So when we talk about the people who in the low income areas like myself, we've been affected by COVID way worse than people who are rich. The people who have not felt the pinch of COVID. And that's why on the headlines, how many people have seen something called post-COVID, blah, 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 something? It's not post-COVID. We are deep in the, like we are literally like sinking, drowning in COVID. But the affluent people are talking about post-COVID. And
so his point is, let's look at it holistically. For example, what affects the man if that man is married? For example, if the economy is bad, might be transferred to the women, to the wife and the kids, or the father with daughters, you know. So I think his point is, let's look at how it affects the females, but also the people are in a society, and so we have to look at COVID from a societal point of view. I might not allow you to, because of time, I will not allow you to have a rejoinder.
I just forgot to say something. Yeah. I have been documenting my work on a YouTube channel called Mine is a Comment, so you can look at how women experience the historical exclusion. Yes.
Thank you for that.
That's it. Thank you.
Joe, there's a question you're going to respond to?
And I don't think we need to romanticize pre-1492 African history. The difference here, why? Because I mean, before 1500 AD, Africa had 200,000 years of history that we don't read about. 200,000 years of history. We don't even know the actual years of history before that precisely. But the thing is, why we focus says that is that it's just one thing, is that this what came through slavery and colonialism, these experiences were the first experience in human history where one civilization or one race of people decided this race of people are not human beings. That's it. So you didn't have, before that, even if I enslaved you, I knew I'm enslaving a human being. That's it. I mean, I was very cognizant of that. But this civilization, they don't think precise. They don't think of you people who look like you and I as human beings. So there's a negation of your humanity.
Cindy?
I mean, there are many things, you know, there's so many things in my mind, and I want to pick up on a few. Let me go back to my initial statement, because I hear the questions coming from here when we talk about gender, and, you know, people are we're all referring to women, you know, the boy child. No, gender is about both the female and the male. So if in tomorrow year we have 95% women leading or, you know, holding positions of whether power or decision making, then that would not be human rights. So let me read you something. It says, no one is less of an equal status. So meaning that all of us are equal. And the fact that we are different doesn't mean that it is inequality. The fact that you are female and he is male does not make one more equal than the other. Okay? But this is, and we've been educated and brainwashed to think that, well, you know, the man is going to lift the 100 kilos and the woman is unable to. Well, gee, guess what? The woman carries, you know, a baby or two or triplets or whatever in her womb for 9 months and gives birth. The man is not able to. Different doesn't mean inequality. It is just different, and there can be equality.
Let's leave it there. Thank you. Mboke, what's your take?
Yes, I would like to respond to Gloria's question about romanticization of this whole issue of gender discrimination. I think for me, the reason why the colonial time is more prominent is where there was a whole money economy. But the gender discrimination actually existed even now, and in the social aspect. Even when you're making decisions in your own family, you get a sense of patriarchy, you know, in terms of, you know, your brother would be had more than you. And that existed even that time. But because of colonialism, because of introduction of money economy, then it became more, you know, more integrated. That's a word. So that's why it's more prominent in that sense. And I like the question that you talked about, where we are focusing on the girl child and then leaving out on the boy child. I think I want to give an experience that I've had. I think for us women, we have gone ahead to really try to catch up. There's a lot of effort as an individual, but also, yes, of course, there's interventions of NGOs and all that. But then also is to say that I don't want to say that the boy child is being done injustice. I think for me, coming from a family where you feel like, okay, the man has a bigger privilege and somehow they'll get inheritance, somehow they'll get all this. So they sort of get to a comfort zone. And that's why we have a lot of problems with mothers, what are they called? My son, you know, the my son connotation. And I think for me, it's to say that even as much as you're saying that the boy child has been left, I think we have a long way to actually get women to the standard that men are. But also it's to say that even as we are empowering these women, it's also to empower them in a way that to raise also very powerful men also. Because we cannot say that we'll, you know, just say that we'll not empower women. We must continuously.
Define powerful men. Is it men who don't feel less, who don't have to put women down to feel powerful?
Exactly, yeah. In the relations, and I like the comment that Chris was talking about, paying bills, you know, it's the relation.
Will the man be able to handle a strong woman?
And it's really the discrimination is usually around also, is that person able to relate with me as well? So even as an empowered woman, I have the sort of I'm in a situation where even though I interact with a less not very confident man, because I'm empowered in relation, I can be able to put this person in the same level. So it's not a competition.
So it's two-way.
Yeah, it's two-way. And we can all empower ourselves in our different contexts.
That's a fresh perspective. And I think from experience, I do know that quite a number of women do that. I don't know whether it's stepping down or it's lifting the man up. Is it stepping down to the man's level or lifting the man up to... Yeah, it's we shouldn't step down. Ah, sawa. So we are wrapping up now. So unfortunately, time moves. Can you imagine you've done 2 hours? More than 2 hours. That's how fast time moves.
Hi everyone. My name is Kimathi, and my question is directed to Joe. That's your name, yeah? So you've described a lot from, you know, colonial times, 1892, 1898, 14 something, to now we're in 2021, yeah? And it's a systematic thing. It's something that has been like ingrained into our systems, and it has been going on for centuries. So do you think this gender question is a paradox, something that can never be solved?
I'm called George Moher. So I wanted to make a comment about the relationship between economy and inequality. 1 month before the estimated budget was read in Parliament, there was research done. And from the research, the findings were women pay more taxes than even men. Yeah. So then again, tukiangalia kwa makazi, kazi zenye sisi hufanya ama kwenye tuna generate our income. Then again, tukiangalia kwenye makazi kwenye tunafanya na nini, unapata women wanakuwaga more victimized. Yeah. Ni ngumu sana mwanamke andikwe kazi kama ni mjamzito, ni ngumu andikwe kazi kama kona watoto. So inakuwa ni ngumu sana the same women who are paying more taxes kukuwa ati anaweza kupata hela ya kugenerate hizo taxes. So I think from the sitting tuko nayo hapa, lazima pia tukuje na way forward ama njia yenye inaweza saidia. For instance, if women are generating more income, yeah, to our budget, yeah, mbona wanakuwa na shida wakati wanahitaji kupata kazi ama wanahitaji kufanya kazi? So I think we the people should force the government to enact laws zenye zinaweza saidia ikuwe ni rahisi kwa kila Mkenya, not that women alone. Kwa kila Mkenya kukuwa anaweza kupata kazi ama anaweza generate income bila hizi vizuizi mingi.
I think when I was introducing, I think I was one of the people who was introducing why we are here today, about discussing gender inequality. This setup, not everyone can access coming to this other side of the CBD to discuss this issue. And I think I'm seated in the midst of very many youths. I think I'm quite older here. I'm very humbled, and I think there's a question that was asked, what are you planning to do with this discussion positively? I want to take it as a personal initiative. What is your input in the community discussing issues, gender inequality? How do we identify them from where we are coming from the communities that we lead, the communities we interact with every single day? I've never dreamt of looking for a job in an office, never, because I love working in the informal settlement where most vulnerable people are. In the rural area where, as a Luo woman, I'm married to a community that don't identify with the leadership of women or giving birth to a baby girl, it's not that easy. So really, every single person that is here, I think it's our mandate to start having the conversations consistent down there in Korogosho, in Dandora, everywhere we are, for the sake of how do I engage with the boys? I'm now working with the boys in crime. Thank you. How do I engage with them to know what life is? I think those are the things, the conversations we need to start talking about. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Lorraine. Let's clap for her.
Mwalimu, I have a very burning issue, and I feel like if I don't say this, I will have not completed the conversation we came to start. Someone asked a question about what will it look like when women are empowered? Will men be strong enough to handle an empowered woman? I have one answer to that. Let's empower the women and see.
So I think two things. One, is it a paradox? There's a book by Professor Mamdani Mahmood from Makerere. It's called Permanent, Neither Settler Nor Native, and he says within the state, it creates permanent minorities and permanent majorities. So I think having this conversation within a frame of Western civilization, there'll always be a paradox, because as the feminist Dr. Awino Ketch says, is the table was not designed for you. So even you come into the table, that table is not designed for you. So there'll always be a tension. But my intellectual takeoff is that I always say we have to move our frames of thinking away from Western civilization and start having different normative frameworks, because within those frameworks, this conversation, there won't be a tension, because we saw each other as equals, and as humanity was a centerpiece of how we saw each other. So both men and women, there won't be a tension.
Ubuntu, and that's what Changamka is doing. It's changing the frame. I think hoping that, as Lorraine has called on us, we've deliberately selected an audience from these communities that we live in, so that you take these conversations back there and reframe them, have them differently, have them from that point where we are coming from, and where we need to go, where we are and where we need to go. And Buki, your take, final thoughts?
Yes, thank you. So for me is to say that the cost of gender inequality is very expensive for us all. And it's to say that, for example, teenage pregnancy is a cause of gender inequality, and it costs us 17% of the GDP of this country. So we must be very deliberate in terms of just bringing or bridging the gap, and really is to look at what are the roles, how do we redefine the roles, so that everyone is contributing in the family setup, the 78% we are talking about, the unpaid work. How do we come together to be able to redefine those roles? Secondly is human rights. You know, gender rights are human rights. And the last comment is around relations. Let's build a culture of relating and building each other to be able to advance the gender rights and human rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Buki. Let's clap for her. And lastly, Cindy.
The Giriama did it. The Borana did it. We had women leaders. They were recognized within the society, within their families, within their, their unit, whatever unit it was. They ask, what is it that changed? And we go back to the genesis of what was brought, the foreign things that were brought to our land. You really need to read your history. It's when for...
These books don't exist
No, yeah, but it is this engagement. But now, let me say this. When people look at Mutemi and well, he's making a lot of noise, and then he quotes things like, you want us to go back to the dark days of MUYI. Can I ask you guys, who knows clearly what took place during MUYI's era? Put up your hands. Clearly, you know. No, yes, you know. But if you, first of all, you're a panelist. Anybody who clearly knows what took place during MUYI's era. So most of you were either not born or you are very young.
And then there's a very huge effort to make sure that history is moved.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I hear someone like Ruto say, I hope a presidential president today should never say, I hope. He should say, it must be that when I take office, it must be. This is what will happen. But this is not what he says. And actually, he's not lying to you. He says, I hope in my lifetime. Jesus.
So when you talk about 1492, to date, the Western civilization is still extracting from us. So what are we going to do about it? This show is not bringing the answer. It's starting a conversation. It's starting reframing the conversation so that we take these conversations to our spaces, to the people we, if you're coming from Mathare, Korogosho, Mukuru, Kileleshwa, Kilimani, wherever we come from, let's take this conversation to our spaces, to our sitting, to our living rooms. Ask about patriarchy in your, I don't know whether you're Christian or not, your school, your class, at JQ Art. And with that, we come to the end of the third episode of Changamka, dealing with gender discrimination. And we hope that we are starting a conversation. And thank you so much. Asanteni.